All right, now that you've completed your 12-step color wheel in the previous assignment, we're going to talk a little bit more about the relationships between those colors on the color wheel in this lecture. Okay, our first example is going to be monochromatic. So monochromatic is a color scheme using only one hue with varying degrees or value intensity. So basically we see in this example on the left side, red has been isolated. It's just one little sliver of that 12-part pie, and then we've added all of the tints and shades, to that color. So you're adding a little bit of white on one side and a little bit of black on that side, but it's all the kind of different values that you can and hues that you can get out of just the color red. So just one color, so monochromatic one, so one color in that color scheme. All right, the next example of color relationships on the color wheel is analogous colors. So analogous means three colors that are right next to each other. A color scheme that combines several hues next to each other on the color wheel. So we can see this kind of little graph right here breaks down all of those examples of analogous color, but you can just think of it as any three that are right next to each other. So analogous colors are going to have a lot in common. They're kind of going to be almost similar to monochromatic in that they kind of just explore one color, but just a little bit more because it explores the colors next to it as well. All right, complementary. So a color scheme incorporating opposite hues on the color wheel. Complementary colors accentuate each other in juxtaposition and neutralize each other in mixture. So this is kind of a more interesting and dynamic one. So in this one, the first example that we see here is red-green, but you could spin that arrow in any direction. It's just any color that is directly across from each other. So when you put the colors next to each other, so red and green are typically Christmas colors, but they get brighter. So you'll see that, like, if you think of your favorite sports teams, like the Lakers are purple and yellow. So they make each other brighter when they're next to each other. But if you actually mixed them together, they would turn into like a muddy gray brown. So they have just a really interesting relationship. They get brighter and they get much duller so if you pair them next to each other, brighter, mix them, duller. All right, the final example that we're going to look at is triadic color harmony. It's a color scheme involving three equally spaced colors on the color wheel. So again, this triangle could be in any orientation, but it's just a triangle that kind of unites or kind of shows us what these color harmonies are. So the first good example is the most obvious one. It's the primary colors. So you can have red, yellow, or blue. Another example is secondary here, so we can have green, orange, and purple, but it could be any of the tertiary colors as well, like yellow, green. So think of those relationships like that. Those are going to be really dynamic. They're generally going to be really bright colors when they're together. It's going to be more of an array, kind of like a rainbow feeling, but just kind of a different relationship there as well. So that's kind of the three color harmonies that we're going to kind of talk about in this next assignment.